In Islam, there's this really profound teaching about hope. This idea that just a tiny, tiny amount of true faith, we're talking an atom of faith, can be enough for salvation in the end. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack what that really means. Okay, so let's start with a question that I think everyone, no matter their background, has probably thought about at some point. It's super direct, super human. Can a person who's made a lot of mistakes, someone with a lot of sins, can they still have a shot at paradise? And you know what? The answer, coming directly from an authentic saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is just wow. It's so powerful and so clear. He said, "Whoever has in his heart the weight of a mustard seed of faith will be taken out of the fire." Just think about that for a second. That's an incredible promise, right? It's saying that even the tiniest speck of real belief is enough to ensure you don't stay in hell forever. Okay, but to really get this, we've got to ask, what is this faith we're talking about? Well, the Arabic word is iman. And look, this isn't just about saying the words, I believe. Nope. Iman is that deep down, genuine conviction in the core tenets of Islam. It's something that can be there, even if it's buried way, way deep inside someone's heart. So what's the bottom line here? It's this. Anyone who passes away with even that tiny atom's weight of true Iman, their ultimate destination is eventually paradise. Yeah, their sins might mean they have to go through a period of purification, absolutely. But that little seed of faith, that's their guarantee they won't be in the fire forever. But you might be wondering, okay, where does a promise this big even come from? How can it be a guarantee? Well, this isn't just some one-off idea. It's actually built on this absolute bedrock principle you find all throughout the Quran, the principle of divine justice. So let's look at the source. This whole idea is rooted deep in how the Quran talks about God's justice. Check out these two verses. First, you have, "Indeed, Allah does not wrong even the weight of an atom," and then reinforcing that same exact idea. So whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. You see? It's this core principle that nothing, absolutely nothing gets lost, no matter how tiny. And that's the guarantee that even a mustard seed of faith gets counted. So what this does is it establishes this fundamental divine rule that underpins everything we're talking about today. Basically, no good deed, and especially no flicker of real faith, is ever, ever missed or thrown away by God. It all has weight. It all has value on the divine scales. All right, but here's where it gets really important. This amazing promise, it isn't a total free-for-all. It's not unconditional. There's one critical, non-negotiable exception, a deal breaker really, something that can completely block this path to salvation. And that exception is a sin called shirk. Now, this is the one and only act that Islam says is unforgivable, and this is key, if a person dies on it without having repented. So what is it? It's the act of associating partners with God. Theologically, this is considered the greatest possible injustice, giving God's unique rights to something He created. It just completely goes against the entire foundation of faith. And the Quran couldn't be more direct about this. It says, "Indeed, Allah does not forgive associating partners with Him, but He forgives whatever is less than that for whom He wills." Wow. I mean, that puts this sin in a category completely on its own, doesn't it? Okay, so if shirk is the lock on the door to paradise, then what's the key? Well, the key is a concept called tawhid. And tawhid is the absolute bedrock of Islam. It's the pure, simple belief in the oneness of God. And guess what? This belief, this tawhid, is that mustard seed of faith we were talking about right at the beginning. So when you put them side by side, you get this really clear picture of two totally different outcomes. On one hand, you have someone who dies holding on to that pure tawhid, even if their actions, their deeds were weak. They still have a path to eventually reaching paradise. But on the other hand, someone who dies with unrepentant shirk, well, for them, that path is completely blocked. Okay, let's pull all these pieces together. We've got the promise from the Prophet, right? We've got the principle of divine justice from the Quran, and we've got the one massive exception. So, how do Islamic scholars take all of that and turn it into one cohesive teaching? Well, the general consensus among mainstream scholars is actually really clear. It basically breaks down like this. First, they say that Iman or faith isn't some black and white thing. It can be tiny or it can be huge. Second, and this is the big one, even the smallest shred of real Iman is what saves a person eternally. So yeah, a believer who sinned a lot might have to face some punishment for their actions, but it won't be forever. And that leads to the final point. Because of that tiny seed of faith, their ultimate entry into Jannah, into paradise, is guaranteed. And just so you know, this isn't some new modern take on things. We're talking about major classical scholars, like the great Imam al-Nawawi, who confirmed the same exact understanding centuries ago. He said, "This teaching is," and I quote, "clear proof that no one who has even a grain of faith will remain eternally in hell." I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than that. All right, so I think we've got a good handle on the what of this teaching. But now, let's zoom out and look at the why. What's the deeper wisdom here? What's the bigger picture behind such a powerful idea? You know, what's so beautiful about this teaching is how it balances so many crucial ideas at once. On one hand, it shows God's absolute justice, that no faith, however small, ever gets lost. But it also highlights his overwhelming mercy, because that faith becomes the ultimate deciding factor. For people who really struggle with sin, this provides so much hope, you know? It keeps them from falling into despair. And at the same time, for those who are very righteous, it's a check against arrogance. It's a reminder that salvation is from God's mercy, not just from your own good deeds. So let's circle all the way back to that first question we asked. Can a person with a lot of sins still get into paradise? And the answer, when you boil it all down, is yes. A single atom's weight of true belief, of pure tawhid, will, through God's incredible mercy, eventually lead that person to paradise. The one huge condition, of course, is that they die free from that unforgivable sin of shirk. And that really leaves us with one last powerful question to think about, because this isn't just theology for the afterlife. It's about how we live right now. How does holding both of these ideas in your mind at the same time, this promise of immense mercy for even the tiniest faith, alongside the reality of absolute justice for every single action, how does that actually shape the way a believer thinks and acts and lives day in and day out?